Good morning. Lots of pondering going on here this morning. I didn't piece together my blurb until about 20 minutes ago. Even coming out of meditation. As I reviewed things that are happening in the workshop and previous workshops, as I reviewed ideas that were presented yesterday following the video, and as I looked at the dream that I had this morning that was over a consecutive period before I got out of bed, a series of dreams in which I kept seeing this vine growing at a very rapid speed. It was like with every breath it was growing another yard or meter, for those of you that do metric system, because it's not an exact number. I want you to know that. Anyway, lots of pieces. And I try to put those pieces together with my rational mind and my ability to communicate sometimes ideas that don't seem easy to communicate. The title that I came up with finally is Responsibility and Accountability, and the blurb that I wrote goes like this. Is justice an idea of the ego, as some stated following the video I did yesterday? Is linear time also an ego concept? How about money, government, and other trappings of human culture as we have known it? Of this I am certain. We are all responsible together. Regardless, or we are all responsible. Look at the punctuation that I put in. Together, regardless of whether we are of the 1% or the 99%, we created it this way. The culture of victimizer and victimhood requires both aspects, or it could not exist. Everyone has the ability to respond one way or another. There is also the principle of accountability. This is where divine justice comes in. It begins with the lights coming on and penetrating the darkness of our ignorance that has allowed us to sidestep our individual and collective accountability. Gotta fix an error again. It is happening in 3D and the other dimensions as well. The wounds are to be healed. As I think I've shared, this is a workshop weekend. And I get once more to reflect on the dynamic that takes place between victims and victimizers. Because if we were each to tell our story, we would each recount times when we've been the victim. Those are the areas where our wounds are. The wounded inner child, what does he call it? The wounded inner child is one thing, but the book that we're studying in Mystics of Training with Eckhart Tolle, he calls it something else, and I can't, the words that he uses escape me at this moment. But in any case, that part of ourself that is hurt, it is the ego. It is the immature self, if you will. The ego is nothing. Don't boogeymanize or demonize the ego. It is simply the immature self or the immature soul on its journey in 3 dimensions and in physicality. That's all it is. It's not some evil thing that has to be destroyed. In fact, we'll never become whole or healed or well by destroying parts of ourself which includes all of the experiences we have experienced. I have listened and watched and examined my own life under the microscope of the rational mind. In the enlightened rational mind, I hope, that allows for the possibility that I may have had something to do with my victimization. That there were lessons that I needed to learn in these aspects of my life that I experienced. It's not a matter of punishing somebody else for my wounds. That's not maturity. That's not wisdom. It's not very smart. But it is the way we've played the game. Who is accountable for my wounded inner child, if not my higher self, my adult person, my adult being that is supposed to be in charge? Now, sometimes I have let the wounded inner child be in charge, and we all have. We've all danced that dance and played that game and dueled that duel. We've all done it. We've let this wounded part of our being be in control of our experience. And that's why we've recycled the same game over and over and over again. We've done it. We've done it. Every one of us have done it. If we look at our lives and we examine our own life, we've all done it. Now, in the human culture that we've created, it is a society. We don't play the game alone. We play it in concert with each other. And we are all responsible and we are all accountable at the very base and essence of the whole experience that we're going through and that we've gone through and that we will go through. Justice, as I've often said, always comes with mercy. It's not about punishment. It's about accountability. Are we willing to be held accountable for our mistakes and our successes? We would all want to take responsibility and be held accountable for our successes. But what about our mistakes? What about the times we have wounded ourselves? Now, granted, I've heard the stories of abuse from the innocent children, and it exists in our world, and it does not make sense from a perspective of justice, from a rational perspective, when we think that this is a separate life that had no previous stuff going on, had no past lives to contend with, and past lessons that we've come back to learn. If we divorce ourselves from that concept of the journey of the soul, and we only see our lives within the context of one life, of a single lifetime, there are no answers. There's gross injustice. There are huge violators of human decency who have abused little children, even infants. And oftentimes it's been the parents that have done the abuse. I know the story from last Thursday in And I've heard it before of this man from Africa whose parents threw him in the garbage when he was an infant, and he was rescued by a good Samaritan or good Samaritans. And he is able to tell that story today, and he's been reconciled with his parents who gave him away, or I should say, threw him away. How many times do we throw away our own inner child? Because we don't like the fact that it's angry. We don't like the fact that it's afraid. We don't like the fact that it behaves in ways that embarrass us. And so we think that by divorcing ourselves from that inner child and not claiming responsibility for it, that somehow we're going to make our lives better, but it doesn't work. And it can't work until we take responsibility, until we hold ourselves accountable. And then in society, until we hold our leaders accountable, the people that have created the victimization and thrived on it, or at least appeared to thrive. But it's unsustainable, so it really isn't thriving, is it? When people that don't need anything take from those that need everything. It's not a fair system, is it? Is it 3D? Yes, it's 3D. Is it from the ego? Yes, it's from the wounded child, the wounded self. It is. And it is in each of us. It is. Own it. Take responsibility for it. Admit the fact of it. Take it as yours. Claim it as yours. Because until we claim it as ours, we cannot heal. We cannot be made whole. We cannot move forward and create a culture that is sustainable, that does work for everybody. And it doesn't matter if it's 3D, 4D, 5D, 7D, 15D, 100D. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The principles are the same principles throughout all expressions of life. They are expressions that, if they're going to teach us anything, are going to teach us that we are part of an interconnected web of life. Interconnected is the key. There must be the recognition of unity, which must prevail over the idea that we're each separate and not connected, and not responsible, and not accountable. And we need to continue the drama, if you will. We need to finish this act of the play by bringing to justice those that are responsible for thriving or for benefiting from a system that has been created at the expense of the majority. The 1%, as they did in Iceland, need to be arrested and held accountable. The bankers, the government leaders, the CEOs of corporations, they are the ones that have perpetuated this thing with the ignorance and acquiescence of everyone else. We need to stop acquiescing. We need to embrace our innocence and let go of our ignorance, because it's time to grow up. It's time to take responsibility. It's time to be accountable for the wounds that we have suffered and everything that we have experienced. We need to heal. And we don't do that by denial. We don't do that by rejecting. that which we don't like. We don't do that by labeling something and thinking it belongs to someone else. If we can perceive it and label it, it's ours. It's ours too. It's not just their fault, it's our fault. It's my fault. But it's not even about blame. It's not even about shame. It's not about fault. It's about seeing. It's about perceiving. And we may not see the wounded inner child in someone else. But if we listen, we can hear its cry. It's saying, love me. Please love me. It's in you, and it's in me, but we usually see it in the other, and they become the mirror so that we can see and look more deeply at our own being and recognize our own journey in the journey and experience of someone else. We are each mirrors for others. Are you willing to become whole? Are you willing to become responsible? Are you willing to be held accountable? The mature person is. And we are growing up and moving from immaturity to maturity as human beings. This is what's on our plate in 2012, October 28th. Thank you for listening. Namaste.